Hey Cowboys fans, buckle up because today's video is packed with updates, deep dives, and a whole lot of draft talk that you don't want to miss. So, let's take a little trip back to 2005, a year that quietly reshaped the entire way the Cowboys built their team. That year marked a turning point, not just because of who they picked, but because of how they started to think. Ever since then, we've seen wave after wave of what seemed like promising moves, only to end up with a pile of what-ifs and missed expectations. You look at the patterns after that draft, and it's clear the golden era of splashy free agent signings was starting to fade. Even when they brought in big names or added solid depth, it just didn't flip the switch like everyone hoped. The front office, always draft-focused under a very specific leadership style, began dialing back on the aggressive signings. And then there was that one player departure. Wasn't a disaster in itself, but man, it deflated the locker room vibe more than anything else. That moment really underscored a major shift in how things were being run. It's almost like a passing of the torch to someone else in the front office, someone who clearly doesn't believe in overspending just to make a statement. Now, when we start talking about the ideal draft setup, one thing's for sure, the fans are all in. There's something about the draft season that brings everyone together, from the diehards who track every mock to the casuals, just hoping we grab someone who turns into a star. And yeah, some of the chatter online took a fun turn when someone from the community shared the joy of welcoming their new baby. It's those lighthearted moments that remind you how football can be more than just XS and OS. But back to business. Looking ahead, there's this ongoing theme in every draft. Someone always falls further than expected. It happens like clockwork, year after year. You dig through past drafts and suddenly see a player drop to round 3 or 4, and you're left wondering how every team missed that. Now, if we're talking about names that might make things interesting this year, then yeah, guys like Jackson Powers-Johnson, Eden Cooper, and Blake Fisher are worth keeping an eye on. The board shakes up in weird ways, and all it takes is one surprise pick or trade to create a domino effect. In fact, next week's video is going to go deep into draft trends from the last 2 years, and I promise it's going to be a fun one. Rewatching those past simulations really opens your eyes to how unpredictable this whole process is. Back in 2024, I was all in on a plan that involved trading down and landing names like Jackson, Eden, Blake, and even Jalen Wright. Just thinking about how that could have panned out is wild. And the year before, in 2023, my picks were Steve Avila and Zach Charbonnet. Solid additions. Even managed to land over Schoen, which turned out to be a funny little highlight. And let's not forget, in one of those late simulations, Puka Nakwa somehow fell into my lap at the end of day 3. Imagine if that had actually happened. We'd be looking at that as a total steal. But hey, that's the chaos of draft season for you. And since we're talking quarterbacks, let's throw it back real quick to Tyler Bray. Yeah, I remember him. Unfortunately, his NFL stint didn't quite pan out. And when we shift to the current landscape, it's hard not to notice how differently national and local analysts view certain prospects. Marion Hampton, for instance. Local reporters tend to have a much better read on how the team is thinking, simply because they're closer to the source. It's not that the Cowboys are out on Hampton, but picking him at number 12 seems like a long shot. Some mock draft from national outlets insist the team needs a running back, and that Hampton fits inside the top 25, so they stick him there. But it doesn't really align with the Cowboys' usual behavior. And to be fair, even the local media can get it wrong. But one thing they all seem to agree on is this. Hampton probably won't be the pick at 12. Sure, he got an invite for a pre-draft visit, but that might be more about due diligence than serious interest. Now, if he starts to slide and we trade down, that's a whole different conversation. But let me throw it back to you. Would you actually take a Marion Hampton in the first round? Drop your take in the comments. That's today's pin poll. Switching gears for a second, let's talk defense, specifically Tyreek Williams out of Ohio State. This guy fits like a glove in what we need right now. We've been missing that second true nose guard, and Williams checks a lot of boxes. He's a big dude with real strength, a true run stopper who doesn't shy away from double teams. I genuinely believe he's got more long-term upside than what we had with Motzie Smith. He reminds me a bit of a quicker Jonathan Hankins, which is definitely a compliment. No, I don't think he's a pass rush machine like DJ Reader, but in terms of clogging lanes and anchoring the line, he's your guy. I'd take him in round 2 without hesitation. This kind of stability at defensive tackle is huge for our system. Now, let's zoom in on some late-round potential. Quandarius Robinson, yeah, he goes by Quay, is an edge rusher out of Alabama. And listen, it's not every day you see a guy from Bama go under the radar. The talent is there, he just didn't get a ton of snaps. When I went through my notes, I had him pegged as a solid 5th-round pick. Same grade for Taj Brooks, the running back from Texas Tech. I see these day 3 picks as valuable depth additions with some upside. Then there's Jabbar Muhammad, the corner from Oregon. He's got some playmaking traits, broke up a bunch of passes in college, but man, those measurables give me pause. He's clocking a 4.5, weighing in somewhere between 170 and 180, and his agility drills weren't all that special. Shorter arms too, under 30 inches, which isn't ideal for what the Cowboys typically look for. So yeah, maybe a 7th-round flyer, but nothing more than that. And while we're in the spring vibe, how can we not talk about baseball season kicking off? There's this buzz in the air as teams hit the field and lineups are starting to take shape. Whether you're talking about clutch hits, RBIs, or that first-inning drama, it's the perfect time to get locked in. And let's not forget, as we move through the months, football talk heats up again with fantasy drafts and training camps just around the corner. It's all about figuring out how guys like Travis Kelce might be impacted by the rise of someone like Rashee Rice, or how a player like Jaden Daniels might lose value if he's not fully trusted in the run game. These little shifts matter, especially for fans who love diving into the details. Now, back to the draft for a second. Let's look at Brashard Smith out of SMU. Listed as a 4th-round talent, but there are some things you've got to consider. He got into some trouble early in the season, missed some classes and team meetings, which led to being benched for part of the Stanford game. Character matters, especially when you're evaluating who fits the locker room. But on the field, he's explosive. Made the switch from wide receiver to running back and started showing flashes similar to Tyrone Tracy last year. He's got that ability to break one big, catch passes on 3rd down, and return kicks if needed. That versatility is tempting. But you have to wonder, can he handle a full workload? I'm not so sure. He strikes me as more of a committee back. Asking him to take 20 touches a game over a full season might be a stretch. So yeah, early 3rd round seems a bit rich. Somewhere in the 4th, maybe 5th, feels more like it. Now, when we shift the focus to trade conversations, one of the most talked about topics among fans is the possibility of landing a major defensive star. But let's just be real for a second. It's not happening. The front office is not going to throw over $40 million at a single player on that side of the ball, especially not when they're already paying serious money to another core guy. The current structure, financially and philosophically, doesn't allow for that kind of splash. People like the idea because it's flashy. But when you take a step back and look at the Cowboys' long-term plans, you realize how unlikely that is. They're not chasing big names. They're focused on development, on building something sustainable, not throwing all their chips into one season. And even if a player like that were available, fitting him under the cap while keeping other pieces together just doesn't make sense. Even the idea of getting a seasoned pass rusher doesn't align with how they've operated recently. There's a plan in place, and it's clearly about sticking to a blueprint, even if that means passing on popular names. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of potential moves, but most of those big ideas just don't fit the team strategy. The smarter play is to invest in growth, build through the draft, and make calculated moves when the time is right. And that's where it gets tricky, because a lot of fans are floating the idea of trading someone like Micah before the deadline to get picks in 2026 or even 27. On paper, that sounds like future planning at its finest. But in reality, it comes with a whole bunch of complications. Yeah, you get those draft assets, but then what? You're saving money now, sure. But are you really improving the team? Because let's be honest, if you trade away your best edge rusher and then use that 1st-round pick to draft another edge rusher, you're just going in circles. You're not building. You're just shifting pieces around and hoping for the same result at a cheaper price. And here's the kicker. If you're not going to pay Micah, who are you going to pay? That's the million-dollar question, or should I say, the multi-million-dollar question. Because you've got all this cap space that's not being used on core guys, and unless there's a clear plan to invest that money wisely, you're just spinning your wheels. That's why I actually like the deal they made with OSA. It felt smart. You're locking up a good player without having to overextend, and it gives you flexibility elsewhere. I'd rather do that than let another star walk only to watch us waste picks trying to replace them. It reminds me of the CD Lamb situation. That contract negotiation took longer than it should have, and yeah, it's probably going to cost more because of that delay. But that's kind of the Cowboys' way. They play hardball until the very end, then finally cave and pay more than they probably needed to in the first place. And that's the concern. If the same thing happens with Micah, you might end up losing the player entirely, and the return might not be as helpful as it sounds. You can't keep drafting top talent and letting it go just because it's expensive. That's not how contenders operate. And if you do move on from a guy like Micah, that replacement better be elite, because you're not just filling a position, you're replacing production, energy, leadership, everything. And that's not easy to find. So unless you've got a sure thing lined up, you're taking a step back. And in this league, every step back feels like a mile. Now, before we wrap things up, let's shift to the back end of the draft board. Two names that come up a lot lately are Savone Revel, the quarterback out of East Carolina, and Maxwell Harrison from Kentucky. Now, here's how I see it. Based purely on tape, I'd lean toward Revel. Before his injury, he was really starting to shine. Big throws, confident reads, mobile when he needed to be. The kid was putting something together. But that ACL tear, that complicates everything. It all comes down to how that knee holds up. And that's why he was brought in for one of those quick 30-minute visits. Teams want to check that knee one more time before making any commitments. If the doctors sign off, I think he's worth a shot. But if there's any hesitation at all, then yeah, maybe you go with Maxwell. And Maxwell Harrison is no slouch either. He's got the tools to be a solid contributor, especially inside as a nickel corner. He's listed at 6'1", but he's probably closer to just under 6 foot. Still, he's got the instincts and enough athleticism to hold his own. I think he could transition into the slot and carve out a role. He's not a perfect outside corner, but the versatility makes him interesting. And at this stage in the draft, that's what you're looking for. Guys who can do multiple things and fit into different roles depending on how the roster shakes out. One thing I want to mention here is that sometimes these day 3 guys turn into hidden gems. You look at some of the players in the league right now who are late-round picks or even undrafted, and it just shows you how unpredictable the process is. It's about fit, opportunity, coaching, all of it matters. That's why you never know who's going to rise. Someone like Jonathan Mingo, for example, was supposed to step up as a WR3, and if he does, great. But if not, it's going to feel like a wasted pick. They spent a 4th-rounder on him, and those picks are valuable, especially if you're not aggressive in free agency. If he doesn't develop, they'll probably go get someone else early next year. The wide receiver room needs depth, and he's running out of time to prove he belongs. Confidence in Mingo right now? I'd say 6 out of 10. He's got flashes, but he hasn't quite put it all together yet. Let me know your rating in the comments. 1 to 10. How confident are you that he becomes a solid contributor this year? Lastly, a few people asked about surprises in the latest scouting report, and while I haven't gone through every line yet, nothing has jumped off the page so far. Usually, what catches me off guard is the personal stuff, the character insights, or surprising family connections you didn't see coming. That's the stuff I love finding. As for the tape, I already knew a few guys were rated higher by other analysts than I had them, so no shockers there. I'll dig deeper soon and see what else pops up, especially from schools with strong reputations. One more player worth mentioning is a linebacker who came in for a visit recently. He's projected as a day 3 pick and has experience playing inside. Solid tackler, but I have real concerns about his coverage ability. He's just not breaking up passes at the rate you want. 1 pass deflection in 2 seasons? That's a red flag for me. You can find guys who tackle at that level without having to spend a pick. Now, if he's there in round 5 or 6, maybe, but I wouldn't use premium capital on him. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. In an unexpected twist that has sent shockwaves through NFL circles, rumors have emerged suggesting that the Pittsburgh Steelers could be the next team to land rising star Jaden Daniels. The 2024 NFL rookie sensation, who dazzled fans with his record-breaking performance for the Washington Commanders, could be on the move sooner than expected. What would his arrival in Pittsburgh mean for the team and their Super Bowl aspirations? This possibility has intrigued both fans and analysts alike, and we're here to explore how the Steelers could potentially snag one of the most electrifying quarterbacks in recent memory. Daniels' rookie season with the Commanders was nothing short of spectacular. He set the NFL world on fire by leading all rookie quarterbacks in rushing yards and completion percentage, earning a trip to the Pro Bowl after breaking numerous records. His impressive 891 rushing yards and 12 game-winning touchdowns in the clutch made him an instant fan favorite, and his legendary Hail Maryland pass, a game-winning Hail Mary, has already become the stuff of NFL lore. His poise under pressure and ability to perform in high-stakes moments could be just what the Steelers need to elevate their offense to new heights. But what could bring a player of Daniels' caliber to Pittsburgh? The Steelers, though a traditionally solid team, have struggled in recent years to find consistent quarterback play. Despite having a strong defense and a talented roster, their offense has failed to keep up with the league's elite teams. Daniels' dynamic ability, both in the air and on the ground, would inject an entirely new dimension into the Steelers' game plan. His dual-threat capabilities would offer Pittsburgh a much-needed weapon to balance out their offensive attack and make them formidable contenders in the AFC North. The possibility of the Steelers acquiring Daniels has become a topic of heated debate in sports media. On one hand, the Steelers would need to work around the Commanders' commitment to their rookie sensation, who has already achieved Pro Bowl status. On the other hand, it's clear that Daniels' potential to elevate a team, particularly one with a top-tier defense like Pittsburgh's, makes the idea of him in black and gold incredibly enticing. Would Washington be willing to part ways with their young quarterback so soon after a breakthrough season? And if so, could the Steelers orchestrate a deal that benefits both teams in the long term? As fans eagerly await what could be the next blockbuster trade in the NFL, the question remains, is Jaden Daniels heading to Pittsburgh? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. The arrival of a player of his caliber would shake up the entire AFC and potentially launch the Steelers back into Super Bowl contention. Stay tuned for more updates as this story unfolds, and prepare for a thrilling offseason ahead. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.